All right, so as I mentioned before, introduction. So my name is Grant Delavecchia. I work with Shadowsoft. I'm a Red Hat solution architect here. This is, for anybody who hasn't realized, this is part 2 of a 2-part Ansible workshop. The first section was section 101, which is just kind of basic Ansible, mostly command line, doing Ansible ad hoc. This is section 2, so this we would consider this to be 201. And we're going to cover using the Ansible automation controller, which is used to be referred to as Tower. Now it is called Ansible automation controller. And it's pretty much the way that you're going to use Ansible in an enterprise situation. So we're going to kind of cut through this stuff real quick here. This is some of the leftover stuff from the last time. All right, so what is the Ansible automation controller? Basically, it's just a GUI version. Let me let this guy in here. Oh, there we go. Effectively, it's the GUI version of Ansible or Ansible Navigator, which is the utility we were using last time, if you guys remember. So it really allows Ansible to be used in an organization where there's more than one person running the same playbooks or playbooks, right? It gives you RBAC, role-based access control, push-button deployment. They're referring to it as delegation, centralized logging for auditing and compliance, and the RESTful API, of course. You're going to see we're going to set up some delegated permissions. We're going to play around with some team stuff today. So I think you'll get a kind of good idea of what it will be like to use Ansible Automation Controller inside your organization. So we start off with an Ansible playbook, and we're going to create our first project. So projects are a logical collection of Ansible playbooks. So you'll see, it'll become obvious to you immediately as soon as we start doing this stuff. From our project, then we'll go and create some credentials. Obviously, we know what credentials are, but they're utilized by the automation controller for authentication in various situations. So, this allows you to establish allowing groups or teams or individual people to use credentials that they don't actually have, right? So we're putting it in the system and we're making it so that it can be delegated without actually giving away the credentials to individual people. So we can even encrypt those using HashiCorp Vault or CyberArk. All right, so then we're going to create some inventories to store the collection of hosts, and then we can group them in certain orders. We're going to do some stuff that's similar to what we did before with playing around with grouping and stuff. So I think you'll be familiar to you guys when we get into it. And then finally, we're going to allow the automation controller to take all that information and run it in the environment. So it's, I think we're going to move a little bit faster this time. I don't expect that we'll use the whole 4 hours, but we have it. So now, this would be a great opportunity to ask questions or anything like that if you guys have any. So we're going to just get into the lab now. So I'm going to close this down and get back over to this platform. All right, does anybody have any questions so far?
So just one question. So the presentation perspective or technology details, was it covered in the first workshop, which we missed? So I missed.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Is this the second workshop, or will you be going through the presentation, talking more on what all we can do with the automation platform and all those things?
I mean, not really. We kind of covered that in the first one. I wasn't planning on going over that again.
Okay.
I mean, let me ask this: how many folks on the call want to have like a kind of an overview? We can spend 10 or 15 minutes, and I can go back through the presentation. Throw some hands up or something.
I wasn't at the first one, and I could use a recap, but I didn't. I wasn't going to steer you that way.
Yeah, okay. Just 10 minutes should be good enough for us.
Okay. All right, let me get the presentation back up again. sorry guys, for anybody who's already been through this, it'd be a good recap. I'll go quick. We won't take as much time as we took the first time. All right, I'm having some troubles here with my computer today. I am finding that supremely irritating. So let me just do this. I'll just leave it in this view. However it works. Okay. All right, so the first lab was really an intro to Ansible. So what we covered was this stuff. So from the intro to Ansible automation platform, all the way to using variables and templates. That was the first 101 class. The 201 class is going to cover this automation controller and all the rest of this kind of stuff. Typically, this is the situation that you have in most organizations, right? You have all these groups and they do their own thing, right? They work together when necessary, and that's usually facilitated by people, not systems. And Ansible, particularly Ansible controller, really gives you the ability to have a common platform across all these teams, right? So they can do all the stuff that they need to do that's specific for their group: governance, compliance, password management, all of that stuff that they're going to want to hold on to and not share with anybody else. They can do, but they can still use the same platform. And kind of the key is, if you look into the DevOps model and just kind of use your imagination here, I don't have a graphic to describe this, but this is kind of where it's coming from. So, your customer, whoever you are, wherever you fit in the organization, you're going to have customers. So your customer wants to do something, but he doesn't need just stuff from you. So if your customer is a developer and a developer needs a server or a container or something to do something with, he needs something from your team as operations, he needs something from security maybe, and he needs something from networking. So as when we get done with today, you're going to see we're going to stack a bunch of playbooks together. And in this particular situation, we can build a playbook, and IT ops can do their part, and DevOps can do their part, security can do theirs, network can do theirs, and the developer, the end user, can come in, click a button, and have all of this stuff done for him that everybody has approved, right? It's sanctioned. We're okay with this, and it just happens, right? So I know that sounds like pie in the sky kind of stuff, but for real, you can actually do it with this, and you'll see how we get through there today. So kind of the key things that differentiate Ansible from other automation platforms or kind of configuration management tools, or whatever you want to call it, is that Ansible is very simple. So you're going to see a little bit of that today, although it probably won't look so simple from what we're doing today. But the first one, we actually built a lot of playbooks, and there's actually a recording of that session. So I think if you reach out to Casey at the end of this, she can get you a link to that. And I believe we still have the workshops as well. So technically you can go through the first session in the workshop and watch the video. We used the full 4 hours, but I think I stripped it down to, I don't know, an hour and 35 minutes or something like that. So you can go through that. But anyway, so it's simple. It's very simple. It's just plain English is the language that you use to write Ansible playbooks. It's YAML, so there are some caveats, but it's just English. It's agentless, so it can talk to anything that you can SSH to or that has an API. And it's very powerful. It can do a lot of stuff very quickly, very easily. So you'll see some of those examples of that as we go through this today. So this is kind of, again, it comes back to the whole idea that, Ansible can help you with your entire deployment of whatever it is you're doing, whether that's deploying a container or a virtual machine or a physical server or an application, right? Whatever needs to happen, Ansible can manage that entire end-to-end process. And that's kind of, where I think a lot of customers are trying to get to with Ansible is they want to automate the whole thing, right? Or as much of the whole thing as is possible. And with a little bit of effort, you could do that with Ansible. And of course, Shadowsoft, we are a consulting firm. And, also we could help you do that too. Just a little shameless plug for us. All right, so this is just yet another, this is kind of the diagram that I was talking to in the slide up here earlier. So this is kind of the way that it logically works out, right? You know, you got all your groups, then you got the line of businesses, which are customers of all of the groups, whether they are directly or indirectly. And then, of course, you have all of your platforms. You know, you got your edge workloads, your cloud workloads, your on-prem data center workloads. And, you know, this is how Ansible really helps break out of these silos. You know, it helps break the silos at this level, and it helps break the silos at this level, because you don't have to manage data center or cloud or edge workloads individually. You will manage them individually with Ansible, but you manage them individually with groups and tags and, you know, that kind of stuff, right? So you write your playbooks to accommodate that. So you say, you know, everything that's cloud, we want to do this to it. But sometimes we want to do it to cloud and data center, but sometimes we only want to do it to edge. You know, you can build that right into the playbooks. You'll see it's pretty slick. I know you keep saying you'll see that a lot, but you will see that. We're going to cover that today. All right, so this is just kind of a diagram of how Red Hat sees the entities that are using Ansible and where those entities fall, right? So we have the regular users who are just kind of mostly the Ansible command line users. We have the domain experts, which are your Linux and Windows and cloud guys, security guys, that kind of stuff. We consider them to be domain experts. We have the operators, who are people who are going to be leveraging the Ansible content. And then we have the content creators, right? So the content creators in this particular concept are the platforms from Red Hat, right? So the automation controller itself, the automation hub, which we're not covering in this section, but you guys definitely want to take a look at the automation hub when you get a chance. We are going to talk about it a little bit in the presentation, but we're not going to cover it in the class. So the automation services catalog, which is another goes along with the automation hub, and insights for the Ansible automation platform. Unfortunately, we're not going to cover these things extensively. We will discuss them briefly, but we're not going to cover them in any real depth. But they are super handy. So let me jump over to that right now. So these are the Ansible automation platform. These are the certified platforms that Red Hat has right now. So when you are a Ansible automation platform subscriber, you get access to the Ansible automation platform, or the Ansible automation hub, which has all of these different platforms. So you see on the list here, you know, we got Checkpoint, we got Cisco, we got F5. For instance, if your organization has F5 load balancers, and F5 has roles and modules that you can use that they have written to work with their products, and they have published them onto the Red Hat Ansible automation platform that Red Hat hosts. And you can download those and leverage them in your environment. And you can do that with all of these people. There's also something called Ansible Galaxy, and Ansible Galaxy is where all the user generated content is stored. So if you write some really slick Ansible playbooks or things you think are really slick and you want to upload them for the world to use, you go to Galaxy and you post them up there. And so a lot of people who are just starting out with Ansible, this is where they go to figure out how to do things, right? You go there and you grab some code that looks similar to what you want to do, some playbooks, some roles, whatever, and you get moving along here. So I would say that this is a real value, whether you realize it or not, in the consulting work that I do with customers with Ansible. If they say to me, you know, we have a bunch of NetApps and we want to do some stuff, first thing I do is go grab the NetApp module. Because inside that NetApp module, there's a ton of tasks, and tasks are things like, you know, telling NetApp to fail over from one head to the other, telling NetApp to grow the volume, or whatever the commands are. There's your tasks, right? So you can just leverage these things. They're already there. All I'm doing is leveraging the technology that's there. So they are very handy. And as you get more advanced with Ansible, you will find more and more uses for them. All right, let me go back to where we were since we skipped around a little bit. Prerequisites, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is an example of an Ansible playbook. This is, we did this in the first class. We wrote this, we built this, we ran it. And, you know, regardless of your knowledge of Ansible or Linux systems administration or whatever, I think anybody can kind of figure out what this is doing. You see we have the name section. The first one is install and start Apache. That's what we're doing. We're installing and starting Apache. We're going to be using the host of web. That's a group or something like that. We're going to become, I'll explain this a little bit later. And these are our tasks. So the first task we're going to do, we're going to make sure that the HTTP package is present, right? So we're using Yum, which is a package manager for Red Hat, or for a lot of Unix operating systems. The package name is HTTP, and we're going to ensure that it is the latest. You can see the rest of these. So as you know, Ansible is just going to run in order in this one. It's going to make sure the package is present. If it's not there, it's going to install it. If it is not the latest version, it's going to upgrade it to the latest version. We're going to make sure that the latest index.html file is present. This source of files is on the Ansible controller node that you're working on, and the destination is var www.html. So it's going to take this file and it's going to make sure that the one in the destination is the same as this one. The bad side is, of course, if that file is newer or different, you could have problems. So that'll come into how we manage this particular situation. As far as whether or not we're going to overwrite or whatever. There's a whole bunch of rules about that we can put in there, although none of them are specified in this particular playbook. And then the third task is we're going to make sure that HTTPD is started. And so we're using the module service. As this one, we're using the module template. The name is HTTP and the state is started. Do we have any questions? I know I'm going really fast. Do we have any questions before I move on? All right, so what makes up a Ansible playbook? All right, sorry, I got ahead of myself. Plays, modules, and plugins. We did that. We're going to look at all these things. So plays are the top level group tasks. So in that little first group, it was the name, the first batch. Name, install, and start web Apache. We're going to use the host of web, and we're going to become. The next is the module. So the tools in the toolkits, right? So the module is, this one is template. And you'll see as we go through with these modules, what we do and how you do them. But I think you're already starting to get an idea of exactly how you leverage them. The next is the plugins. And these are things like become. And become allows you to become root, right? So when Ansible runs on a system, on a host, a guest endpoint or whatever you want to call it, it has to run as a particular user. So most of the time it runs as the Ansible user, which should be installed on all the machines in the environment, because you don't really want to run it as root all the time, because you don't necessarily need to give root permission to your automation platform. So with Ansible, when you're writing your playbooks, you have the option to say, do I need to be root or do I not need to be root? And depending on whether you need to be root or not, you use become. And become gives you higher privileges. In the automation controller, it's going to be called escalated privileges. In the playbook world, when you're actually writing playbooks, it's the word become. And it's just become is true or leave it out, right? If you're not going to become, and then it's no big deal. All right, so inventory. When you were going to create an Ansible inventory, and I'll show you in the controller, we'll make those in their controllers as well. But the inventory are the list of systems that we're going to be running it against, right? So as you can see in this example, we have one called web, and that's 2 web servers. We have DB called DB servers, and switches, switches, right? Obviously. The roles. So roles are pretty cool, actually. Roles are tasks in groups with variables in a reusable structure, right? So roles is kind of what you're going to do, is what you're going to start writing when you are automating between teams or between silos, for instance, right? So, if there's 10 things that have to be done to deploy an application, you would write a role for those 10 different things, right? Because maybe those 10 things interact with some other team, or maybe they have to install an Apache. And so maybe one of the roles is your standard Apache build. And so instead of writing that every time, we just call it, right? We call standard Apache build, inside our playbook. So you're writing playbooks, everybody else is writing playbooks. You can just leverage these roles back and forth without having to rewrite the code. So we already know that they work, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. All right. And a lot of times, just as an FYI, when you download stuff from the Automation Hub and Galaxy, what you're really downloading is a lot of roles, right? So you'll see a role has a very specific structure. We're going to get into that a little bit. as we go along here. All right, so collections are just a way to deliver content. So it's a bundle that's in a specific thing. So remember I was telling you about roles. Roles have specific structure. Well, collections do too. And collections will contain modules, playbooks, roles, plugins, docs, and tests. And when you go to the Ansible Automation Hub and you download stuff from Cisco, they're usually collections, right? So you're downloading a collection which has a whole bunch of modules, a bunch of playbooks, a bunch of roles, that kind of stuff. And it's for all the tasks and everything. All you need to really do is look at one and you'll understand almost immediately what I'm talking about. So this is the structure of a collection. So this is exactly right. So you download the Nginx core collection, and I'm guessing we probably got this from Galaxy. And inside that is all this stuff. We have a playbooks directory, and that's an actual Nginx deploy YAML. And this is inside the deploy YAML. This is what it looks like, right? So you can see we have our play, and then we have our tasks right down the list. For the roles, we have the Nginx defaults, the tasks, the templates, and then we have the Nginx app project and the config. So we're not going to look at this, but that's pretty much usually what they look like as far as the roles go. All right, so this was a little bit, I was talking a little bit about this, how Ansible works. So the code is executed locally on the control node and then is delivered to the network devices or API endpoints. So that's not the same as a system. So if you look down here at the bottom, the module code is copied to the node and then executed, right? So we are running it on the actual server. So if we're talking to a Linux or a Windows machine, we're executing the code on the server, right? If we're talking to a network device or an API endpoint, then we're executing it locally and we're just issuing the results to the endpoints. And the reason for that is that obviously, Cisco has an operating system on their devices, the iOS, right? But you can't necessarily execute Python code against it, right? I mean, some devices you can, some you can't. So Ansible makes this distinction between actual servers and network devices / API endpoints. Also, due to that, the subscriptions are separated in that respect as well. So if you wanted to manage all of your Linux boxes and your Windows machines, all your servers and all your network devices, you pay X amount of money for the hosts, the servers, and you pay a different amount for the network devices, right? So obviously, Red Hat has done that to make the subscriptions a little more manageable because you're going to have a lot more network devices / API endpoints than you will servers per se. So there's a distinction between there, and there's a bunch of rules around that too. We can get into there and help you guys out with that if that becomes something you want to talk about. All right, and these are the exercises. Let me see if there's anything. Yeah, there's nothing really. All right. All right, does anybody have any questions? I see some chats in here. What do we got? Overview, does Galaxy come with Ansible? Yes, Galaxy is not a cost, it's free. Anybody can go there right now and, oh yeah, Joe answered that, sorry. All right. Okay, so do we have any other questions or anything like that before we get into the labs? Does anybody want to take a break? A quickie break before we do that? I usually take breaks once an hour at the top of the hour, but obviously we can do that whenever anybody wants to. No? Okay. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So these are the Ansible RHEL exercises. If everybody is on this page here, our little landing page, here's the deck. This is a PDF of the deck that I was just showing you. If you want a copy of it, you're more than welcome to download it right here with this link. So these are the RHEL exercises. Now I have them up on my screen, but I have them on another screen that you guys can't see. So we'll go ahead and click on it, but I'm not going to keep it up on the screen because I'm going to keep these two windows on the screen. So this is my Ansible automation controller, and this is my Visual Studio Code with my console. So has everybody been able to get into Visual Studio Code and make sure they can get their console up, their terminal up? I'll wait a second for everybody to get a chance to let me know if they can do that. Okay, I'm assuming that everybody can. All right. I'm gonna go and log back in. All right, and I am hoping that everybody has had a chance to get this page up and are looking at the dashboard.
I'm having a problem logging in, just my password's failing, I think. Right, for the second part. I can get in VS Code, but not the controller.
Okay. And this is the password that you're using, and the username is admin?
Yes. Maybe I'm messing it up.
How's it going? Is having an invalid username password. What was your student? So Barry, can you paste their password into this into the chat window? I don't want to try to. Oh, you just got in. Okay, never mind. Okay, yeah. All right. Anybody else having trouble getting in? No. All right. So we're going to get cracking here then. So jump on down to exercise section 2, 2.1. Introduction to the automation controller. And then I'm not going to leave that page up. There we go. All right. So the following exercise, we will cover going through features of job templates, projects, inventories, credentials, and workflows. So the first thing we're going to see is the user-friendly dashboard. I'm guessing that's this. Yes, it's very user-friendly. So what we see here is recent job activity, the number of managed hosts, and a quick pointers to list of hosts with problems. 0 project sync failures, 1 project, 1 inventory, 4 hosts. All right. So projects are the logical connections of Ansible playbooks and the Ansible automation controller. These playbooks are either local on the server itself or in a source control version system, which I would strongly recommend you put it in a source control versioning system. Whatever you guys use, definitely do that. Inventories are a collection of hosts which jobs can be launched against. Credentials are credentials, and templates are in particular, the job templates are a defined set of parameters for running Ansible jobs. And a job is just an instance of the automation controller launching an Ansible playbook. So if you want to think about a job as kind of like a cron entry or something, but it's not necessarily timed. You're going to run it now kind of thing. So you'll see. All right, next exercise. First, we're going to examine our inventory. So if we go to our terminal, they want us to issue the command. There it is. What is happening here? I guess I didn't copy that. All right, so we're supposed to issue the command where we're catting our lab inventory host. And we see we have one group of web with 3 nodes in it and one called control with Ansible #1 in it. Everybody's IP addresses should be different than what I'm seeing here on my screen. All right, so next we're going to take a look at the machine credentials. So we're going to go to credentials, and we're going to click on the workshop credentials. And we see the credential type of machine. That means that it's going to be used for SSH or something to that effect. We have a username of EC2 user, and then we have an SSH private key that's encrypted, so we don't get to see that. You still can run Ansible ad hoc commands, and we're going to do a couple of those. But basically, you go to inventories, you click on the inventory, you click on hosts, and then you can either click on the individual host that you want to run them on, or you could just hit run command. So you see this if we're looking at the run ad hoc command section of the lab guide. You can see that we're going to run command, right? And oh no, we're supposed to pick the ping module. We're doing a ping. There are no arguments with ping. We hit next. We select default execution environment. We hit next. Workshop credentials, next, and then we hit launch. And so it's going to run, and it's going to ping everything in the environment that it can because we didn't specify a list of machines. And here we go. We got our answers back. Everybody said Pong, and everybody's happy. Okay, so now we're going to do this again, but this time we're going to do it a little bit more complicated. So we're going to go back to inventories, workshop inventory, hosts, and then run command. So this time our module is going to be command. And in the arguments, we're going to type in ID. Oh, ID. And then we hit next. So what is this going to do? This is going to find the user ID of the executing user in the ad hoc command mode. So remember I was saying you could do become, and you can become a different user. Well, we're going to see what user this is being run as right now in our environment. And as you can see, we are the EC2 user, or the user we logged in with the creds, right? All right. Now we're going to try to grab the contents of Etsy Shadow. So we'll go ahead and go back to inventories, workshop inventory, hosts, and then we'll run command. So this time we type in command, and the arguments are the actual command. Shadow. Now, right here, you see this enable privilege escalation. We should click this, but we're not going to, because in this particular lab, they want you to run through it the first time without clicking it. So we're going to do that. And we're going to launch it. And we're going to see what happened. So it should come up all red, right? Because this user, EC2, does not have permission to look at the shadow file. So we got to do this again. So we go to inventories, workshop inventory, hosts, run command, cat Etsy shadow. Now we click the escalate privileges. Then we hit next. We pick our default execution environment. We pick our workshop credentials, and then we hit launch. And now, as you can see, we get a bunch of output here. Well, we will. There we go. See? We got the contents of the file. Okay. All right. Any questions before we move on to the next exercise? Am I going too fast? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. Next exercise. All right, so we're going to get it. We're going to set up a Git repository. So if you look at the guide, where are we? So if you look at the guide, we have these the Git repos that we're going to do all the stuff into. These are the examples. So if you want to go take a look at these examples, they are right here. So we have the RHEL Apache and everything that's inside here. So we're going to be using this as we go along to the lab. So, but we're not going to be writing playbooks. So if you want to see them, this is where you can go see them. All right, so we need to configure as the source control management in this project. So we're going to add a new project. Projects, and we're going to add, and it's called workshop project, default organization, default execution environment, and it is a Git repo. So we're going to grab the source control URL, and we're going to specify the options. So we want clean, delete, update on revisions, and then we click save. Right. All right, so we see we are successful in our last job sync. So if we go back to projects, we'll show here, oh, we're successful. So what that means is that it synced with Git, right? So you saw I just clicked the sync button over here and asked it to do a manual sync again. So, okay, this is good. So if you make a change and you want to, you make a change to the Git repo and you want to see your stuff in there now, you click this refresh button and you'll make sure you have a refresh in here anyway. Just as an aside though, when we created this project, we did tell it to do an update revision on launch. So every time we're going to execute something in this project, it is going to do a Git update and download any new changes before it runs the thing. So you should be relatively assured that you're going to be using current data when you set up these projects. So just a little thing to be aware of. All right, so now we're going to create a job template and we're going to run a job. So we're going to go to resources templates and we're going to click on add and we're going to add a job template. So it's called install Apache. So we have two different types of run types in here. We have run and check. So check is the equivalent of doing Ansible-N, I believe, which is don't do it, right? Just run through everything but don't actually execute it. So clearly this is good for debugging when you are not sure how things are going to work out, and all that kind of stuff. This is good for that. But in this particular situation, we're just going to pick run. For inventory, we're going to pick workshop inventory. For project, we're going to pick workshop project. Execution environment is the default execution environment. Now we're going to select a playbook. So we're selecting RHEL Apache install. And if you want to see what that is, RHEL install Apache install, and here it is. All right, I guess we'll go through this for those of you who weren't at the first one. So here's the play. It's Apache web server install, and we're doing it to the web hosts. So again, here's the tasks. We're installing the latest version of Apache. We're installing the latest firewall D. We're making sure that this service is enabled and running. We're gonna make some changes to the firewall D service and make sure that it permits the HTTP service. And we're gonna make sure that Apache is enabled and running. Okay, pretty straightforward. All right, so that's what it is. And then we need to go back to workshop credentials. Yes, we're going to put a limit here to web, just so it doesn't go outside of the limits of using some other group. Not that it should, but it could. And we need to specify privileged escalation. So you see this down here, privilege escalation. So now we hit save. All right. Now we can just click launch here, or we can go back to the templates directory and we can click little rocket. So we're going to click a little rocket, and now we're just chilling, and we're going to wait for this install Apache to finish. And so here you go. We have a little green flash in action. So the first thing we did was gather the facts, as you can see. Now we're doing the latest Apache install. We're installing Firewall D. All right, and there's the play cap. So we have okay responses. We made 5 changes to each of these servers. Okay. The output. All right. Now the next lab or the next section is the challenge. So they want us to do an adcock command on both hosts to make sure that Apache is installed and running. We've already been through all the steps, so it really shouldn't be kind of a big deal. So let's go back to where are we? Inventory. All right, we're going to do ad hoc. So we're going to go to inventories, workshop inventory, hosts. We're going to pick node 1, node 2, and node 3, and then we're going to say run command. So we specify the module, and we're going to do a system CTL. Right? No. Oh, right. We're going to do command, and then we're going to do system CTL. And then status HTTPD. Right? Or do we need to be root? I don't think we do. Next, we do a default execution, workshop credentials, and then we hit launch. And we should get a status. Well, 3 of them technically. And there we go. Running, listening on port 80, running, listening on port 80, running and listening on port 80. Okay, any questions about anything we just did there before we move on? No? Okay. Yeah, all right, good. Next exercise. What are we doing next? Oh, yes, we're going to play around with some templates. All right. So we're going to play around with a Jinja 2 template. I don't think we're actually going to touch the templates again. We're not actually doing stuff with the YAML and templates like that and stuff today, but we are going to leverage them. So we're going to create a new job template. So we go to templates. Right, let me see where we're at. Templates, add job template, right. All right, the name, create index.html. We're going to do a job type of run. Our inventory is workshop inventory. Our project is workshop project. And we're going to use the default execution environment. And we're going to specify what Apache role install. All right, we're going to pick workshop credentials. We're going to limit it to web again. And we're going to privilege escalation. I hit save. All right, but don't run the template yet. So we're going to add a survey to the end of this particular template. And so the point behind surveys is in the event that you have to interact with the template or the job template that you're creating. And you'll see as soon as we do this here, where this kind of falls into play. So the question here is first line. Let's do our case so you can see the difference. And then the variable name is first underscore line. Save, and we're going to add a second one. Second line, and then we hit save. All right. So we're going to enable it. Hitting this little button over here, we enable these two. And then we launch the template. So we go back to our templates. And then we click the little rocket right next to, which one are we doing? Create index, right? All right, so grants first line, grants second line. So we have to fill out the survey before we can go, and then we run launch. So now we're going to do this, and then what we'll do is we're going to curl it on the console so that we can see the changes that we made. So if we issue the curl now, we get all this junk because there's nothing in there effectively, right? So as soon as this finishes, okay, then we'll go back to our terminal and we issue our curl. And look at that, there we have, we used a template to create the first line, second line. So if we go back and look at these template, so you can get an idea. That's not what we want. Where is that stuff? Where's the rules at? Oh, there they are. No. Templates. Okay, so this is the template, right? So you can see we specified this first underscore line variable and the second underscore line variable. So if we go back over to here to the surveys, you'll see first underscore line, and then we see in the template, the Jinja template, the first underscore line. So this is how this works. Obviously, this is super basic, but this is how the templating works. Sorry, guys, I had a phone call coming in. Anyway, so you can see this is very simple how the templating works, straightforward. Any questions about that before we move on? No. Let's say no. Okay. All right, moving on. So now we're going to do some stuff with the users. We're going to create a user. There's three kinds of users: a normal user, there's the system auditor, and there's the systems administrator. So in this particular one, we're going to create a user. There's my, okay. Click on users and click on add. So the first name, the username, first name is what? Werner. Last name is Web. Email wweb @com. Username wweb. Password Ansible. User default organization. Okay, so just a little aside, if we're gonna continue down the road with this entire lab, it's going to have you log in as this user. So, I mean, technically you don't have to create this user, but then you're going to hit a problem with the lab where we can't do stuff. So I would say right make the user, but here we go. Now we hit save. So now we're going to go to access, right? We're going to go to menu, go to access and teams. Right. Teams, and we hit add. All right. All right, I just realized it was 2 o'clock. Hey guys, let's go ahead and take a pause. I'll set a timer for 10 minutes. Unless we want to take more than 10 minutes. If I don't hear anything, then we'll just do 10 minutes. Okay. All right, are we all back? I hope so. Okay. So we were making a new team. Okay, so we go to teams, right? We click add new. And we're going to call it the web content. So the default organization. And then we hit save. And we're going to add a user to the team. So go back to teams, we'll click web content, access, and then we want to say add. Then we're going to select a resource type of users. Next. And we're going to select it from the list, check web. And hit next. Then we're going to select the roles. We're making him a member. And hit save. So the permissions to read, modify, administer projects, inventories, and other automation controller elements. Permissions can be set for different resources. Okay. So to actually allow users to do something, you have to set the permissions. So the user www.web or www should only be allowed to modify content of the assigned web servers. Who is this? Okay. So we're going to go to resources and templates. We're going to make a new template, huh? Select, oh no, we're going to modify create index, select access, and click on add. Select resource type users, select www. Next, and we want to say read and execute. Save. All right. Now we're going to test. So we're going to log out as admin, and we're going to log in as www or www. Password was Ansible. We log in. All right. We go to templates and we see create index. We only see that one. And we're going to run the job. We're going to click on the little rocket. Boom. We have to specify first line, second line, and next line. Now, so you notice we didn't have to specify any credentials or anything like that for this user to be able to run this. So we just specified that this user has permission to run this template, and we're good, right? So now anytime this guy needs to, he can log in and he can execute the templates that we've given him. All right, so this is completed. We're going to hop over to our terminal and we're going to curl it. And you see we have for Werner's first line and Werner's second line. All right, ease and pease them. Do we have any questions before we move on to the next exercise? Okay. All right, so we are going to make a basic workflow to link multiple job templates together. So this is a little bit more advanced than your typical Ansible kind of use cases and stuff, but you'll see, I think it's pretty straightforward. We'll see as we go along. So we have two departments in our organization. We have the web operations team that's developing playbooks in their own Git branch named WebOps. And we have the developers team that's developing playbooks in their own branch named Web Dev. And we're going to deploy a Node.js server, and two things need to happen. The web operations team needs HTTPD, firewall, and Node.js to be installed, SE Linux settings to be configured, and the firewall needs to be opened, and HTTP and Node.js need to be started. On the web developers team, the most recent version of the web app needs to be deployed and Node.js needs to be restarted. All right. So first thing we're going to do is set up a couple of projects. So we go to projects. Oh, well, first we need to log out of web. I need to log in as admin. Password. All right. So we're going to go to projects and we're going to create a project. Name of the project is Web Ops Git Repo. Default organization, default execution environment, and it's Git. So we specify the source control URL. And this time we specify the web ops branch. We're going to clean, delete, and update on launch. Now we hit save. All right, we're going to make another project. Projects, add. Name is web dev git repo. Default organization, default execution environment, get source control. Source control URL again. And this time different branch, web dev. Clean, delete, update on launch, save. All right, now we're going to create two job templates. And so we're going to create the first one. So first one, job template, yes. Name, web app deploy. Run, inventory, workshop inventory, project, web ops git repo. Execution environment is default. We're going to select playbook, web infrastructure.yaml. So let's look. Oh, we don't have that one. We need to find that one. Where did it say it is? In the rel Apache directory, the other roles, Apache rel install. Sorry, guys, I got distracted. Let's get back to this. All right, workshop credentials. We're going to limit the web. We're going how to privileged escalation. Let me just make sure I got everything since I got a little distracted here. Okay. And now we hit save. Now we're going to create another template. And this one is called Node.js deploy. So run type, inventory, workshop inventory, project. And the project is web dev git repo. Select default execution. And this one we're picking install node app. And we want our workshop credentials. We're going to limit it to web. We're going to privilege escalation and we hit save. All right. So now we're going to make a workflow. So we go back to templates, we click on add, and now we add a workflow template. So the name is going to be deploy web app server. And the organization is going to be the default. Anything else? Nothing else. Save. All right. So now we have this thing called the workflow visualizer. And we're going to go ahead and click on start. Add node assign an action by typing in job template, right? And then select web app deploy template. All right. And then click on save. Now we have this little thing looking like this. So we're going to hover over this. We're going to click the plus sign to add a new node. And the run type is on success. Next. And we're going to specify job template and we're going to pick Node.js deploy. So I think that you guys can see what we're doing here. We're building, right? One playbook and then another playbook. Then we click save in the top right corner of the visualizer. And now we're going to launch the workflow. What does this say? Playbook job, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Start. All right, now we hit launch. So let's go ahead and launch it. And we get this visualizer thing. If we hover over the one that says JT on it, that's labeled the job template, then we'll get the status of running. As you can see, we have the flashing green doomajigger in here now. And if we click on it, then we can get some details about this job. If we go to output, then we get what we would normally be used to seeing about running a single job. Let's go back. All right, we're still running this. So you see we're in the jobs list and we have the two jobs. This was the first one that we ran and this one is the second one that's running afterwards. So if we click on this one, we show that we're still over here. And we'll click the details here and take a look and see what's happening. That's running the handler. All right. Okay, it finished successfully. And here's the output of the second job. Everybody's happy. All right. Now, if we do this curl command down here, get our code server, and they have node X in the copy and paste, so we need to change that to the node we want. Hello world node 1, hello world node 2, and hello world node 3. So you guys, I hope you got the idea there with the workflows. That is how you kind of stack things together, right? So the idea there would be something along the lines of, you know, you can now delegate this to the W web user, right? And he can come in here and click this and run all of those Ansible playbooks without having to, you know, really interact with anybody else. All right, so any questions, concerns before we move on to the next exercise? All right, moving on. So let's set the stage. Your operations team and your application deployment team like what they see, and they want to use it to put the environment together. So the requirements are all web servers, node 1, 2, and 3 should go into one group. As the web servers can be used for development purposes or production, there has to be a way to flag them as stage dev or stage prod. Anybody who was in the first one, we did this. In the first workshop, we did this in Ansible using the hosts and the groups configuration. So we're doing the same thing. We're just doing it in a little bit of a different way. So anyway, so the web servers can need to be grouped accordingly, stage dev or stage prod. Currently, node 1 and 3 are used as development, and stage node 2 is production. Of course, the content of the world famous application index.html will be different between dev and prod. Okay. All right. So the code's already in place, the workshop, yes, there's the examples. Look at the web content if you want. Okay, so we just in the Git repo, it shows what is going on in the bottom in between these. So you can see that there's the dev index.html.j2, and it has the dev content, and this one has the prod content, and then the main.yaml. It deploys it, and you see we're setting the source for stage index 2, and then it's going to notify the Apache restart. So we're going to prepare the inventory. So first thing we're going to do is go to inventories and click workshop inventory. And within this, we're going to pick groups. We're going to add, and we're going to call it web server. And click save. And in the details tab of the web server group, we're going to click edit. And within the variables text box, we're going to define the variable labeled stage with the value of dev and click save. So you see we have these these three lines, and we type in stage, semicolon, dev. Then we hit save. All right, now we're still here at details, click on hosts, and we're going to add. We're going to add an existing host, and we're going to pick node, what is it? 1, 2, and 3. And we hit save. So we're going to go back into inventories, workshop inventory, click the hosts, and then we hit node 2. All right, node 2, we're going to hit edit. And you see that we have some variables in the box already. So this is kind of jacked up. I don't know why it does this, whether it's a YAML or JSON, it comes up the same way. So just click on YAML and we'll just fix it real quick. Get rid of this stuff that doesn't need to be there. We're going to put in our 3 dashes, and then we're going to put in our next option, stage prod. I'm going to hit save, and everybody's happy. All right, so now we're going to create a template to do the actual work. So we're going to add a job template. We call this create web. Do a run type job, workshop inventory. Which project are we picking? Workshop project. Select default execution. And what playbook are we running? RHEL, Apache Web Content, YAML. Variables. Okay, so what's interesting about this, and I don't know if this is a syntax error in the lab, but I can tell you if you don't separate those two, it will not work. All right, now we pick privilege escalation and we hit save. And now we're going to launch. All right, we're going to create a little Ansible playbook here that's going to check this for us. I'm not going to bother typing it in and all that stuff. I'm just going to do a quickie. And then we're going to do the Ansible Navigator and we're going to run it. So something did not work. What happened? Let's go take a look at the job. We didn't specify credentials. That would be why. Okay. Now we hit save and now we launch. So you see it hasn't changed yet because we're still running the old content. There we go. All right, and now we run it again and it should be the right thing. There we go, see? So node 1 is development, node 2 is production, and node 3 is development. All right, so now we're going to add a survey to the template. Where are we? What was that? That was create web content. Survey and type in add. What should the value of dev content be? We're going to put in here dev content. Save. We're going to add another one, and that should be what is the value of prod content. content. Text, save, enable the survey, back to templates. All right. And permission to team web content so the template to create web content can be executed by web. Okay. Web, read, and execute. Oops, I missed the execute. Roles. Interesting. Okay, I guess I just need to delete it and do it over again. All right, web, read, and make sure I click the execute this time. And then hit save. Okay, read, execute, yay. Okay. Read the survey as web log. All right, so we're supposed to log out and log back in. So let's do that. Or I'll do it anyway. Log in. We go to jobs. Right. Oh, templates now. And we want to create the web content template. And we're going to launch. So what should the value of dev content be? Boom. All right, it hasn't changed yet. All right. Run the checks YAML we made again, and it should have the new content we put in there from the, yeah, see, web, W web dev content, W web prod content, W web dev content. All right, and there you go. That's the end. I guess we got through it a lot faster than we had anticipated. Okay. So do we have any questions or comments? No.
And unmute yourself and ask Frank a question if you have it.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said if they can, unmute themselves and just jump out and, ask if there are any questions.
Yeah. Any questions, or you can use the chat if you prefer. If not, then you guys get an hour back. No. Okay.
Once again, do we know how long the lab environments will stay online?
Let me see if I can actually tell you how long they'll be online. I know that It will be up until probably tomorrow. They usually last for a day or so. I think he started it this morning, but I'm not 100% certain. So usually they're up for a day or two, but it should be up for the entire day, and you can run through the entire lab. So that link that you guys got in the very beginning for the Ansible stuff has the link, the Ansible RHEL exercises link and the technical deck link. And you can run through the entire thing for both if you are so inclined to do so.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. All right, if there are no more questions, then I guess you guys are free to go back to doing whatever it is you were doing or whatever it is you want to do. I'm gonna go ahead and stop
Just
the
want to say,
recording.
yep. Just want to say thank you everybody for coming today. You know, if you have any questions or anything we can help, please feel free to reach out to, you know, Casey, me, through email or Grant, you know, so we'll get back to you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye then. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.